It's 2022, the start of a new year, which offers the opportunity to reflect, doesn't it, on the past and a chance to reset ahead of moving into the new year and really tackling the issues that matter. Join me in making a tangible difference to this crazy rock that we call Earth. People spend this early part of the year making resolutions. They make promises to themselves that they'll do things to improve their life and their well-being. Robbie Knox has done a whole video this year about his early year plans for self-improvement. But I have to say, it felt a bit hollow to me. After all, Robbie, how can you possibly improve on perfection, eh? Here to bring you up to speed are some typical, some say classic, New Year's resolutions. But I've grown tired of these, let's say it, selfish resolutions. This year I'm replacing that mishmash of wishy-washy resolutions with one single pledge. This pledge will not only improve my life, but all of our lives. It's a pledge that means something, a pledge that matters. I urge you to join me. Together, we can change the world if we all just commit to this one simple yet crucial pledge. In the 1960s, feminist women burned their bras. Well, they didn't really, it was all a bit of a myth. But it was a symbol of their fight for equality and their desire to smash the patriarchy. 50 odd years later, and the battle has been won. The war is over. We now have full equality in all areas of life. Which means it's time to turn our attention to another garment that represents the enslavement of the masses, the tie. I absolutely despise this piece of material, this glorified strangler, this thankless throttler, this uncomfortable fashion item that serves absolutely no purpose other than to satisfy the perceived wisdom that it's smart. People are shamed for not wearing ties. The phrase open-necked is loaded with derision, as if the world should be offended by someone having the temerity to show an extra inch of naked neck. What item of clothing holds more power than the tie in our society? Why does it hold that power? Why do we revere this symbolic chain that demonstrates our submission to the man? And why do we put up with it when we've already rid ourselves of other silly accoutrements like hats and pocket watches? Not wearing a tie is often seen as making a statement or even something that's counter-cultural. But the only statement not wearing a tie should be making is, I prefer to be more comfortable than wearing an item of clothing that actually inhibits my breathing and blood flow. I know my history. I know that ties are descendants of cravats from France, named for the Croatian mercenaries who fought during the 30 Years' War in the 17th century, and then that they were popularised by Louis XIV and French nobility before undergoing lots of changes through styles and lengths until they became what they are today, an emblem of the oppression of the modern working environment. So it's not really the tie's fault. The tie was just supposed to be a bit of sartorial fun. It never wanted to become the throat manacle that it is today. So in a way, we'd be doing it a favour in rejecting it, or at least relegating it from everyday chore to occasional fun, fancy dress. Ties are annoying. They get in the way. They dangle in soups. They get caught in machinery and cause injury or even death. In a fight, they can be grabbed by an opponent and used against you. Look what used to happen to IRS in the old WWF back in the 90s.
IRS, all tied up.
Apart from anything else, ties rarely get washed, which means they're all filthy disease carriers, and in fact, they have been banned by all hospitals in this country. Most ties these days are literally just petri dishes for new COVID variants. And don't get me started on bloody novelty ties. Ties with cartoon characters, ties with piano keys, ties with pigs doing stuff, ties with your own family on them, ties with sweets, ties with rubber ducks, ties with neon lights, and worst of all, novelty Christmas ties. We don't need these things. I once bought my dad a wooden tie as a sort of novelty Christmas present. What did I think he was going to do with it? Show it off down at his Rotary Club? Look, I've got a wooden tie. Oh, have you? Yeah, well, normally they're made of material, aren't they? Yeah, I guess. But this one's made of wood. Yeah, it is. What a waste of time. Perhaps worst of all, we make kids wear ties at school. But here's the thing. Ties do not affect learning. Ties do not make you smarter. Ties do not make lessons easier. Ties do not help you to reason. Ties do not help you make friends. They don't help you to solve puzzles. They don't help you to play. But kids will grab ties and make peanuts so that you can't get them off your neck. Why do we make kids wear a sort of collar as if they're no better than dogs? This is indoctrination of the most insidious kind, drummed into them from a young age. One tie good, no tie bad. We are monsters. Now, some of you might take all of that on board, but then come at me with what you think is a pretty good point. Dan, you might say, what about George Clooney? If there are no ties, then we get no Clooney, absolutely smouldering in a well-cut suit and tie. To which I would reply, Clooney doesn't need a tie to smoulder. Dear God. So enough of that, if that's all you've got. It's time for something else to start smouldering. Those magnificent feminists of the 60s may not really have burnt their bras, but I encourage you, all of you, to reject the tyranny of the tie and burn them. Burn them all! Safely and while taking proper precautions, and ideally with an adult present. Let this tie be the first tie in a future giant pyre of smouldering ties. Let today be the first day that we cast off this neck shackle, or neckle if you prefer, and finally say no more. Let us cut all ties with ties and smoke them like kippers. Let us free our throats and emancipate our necks. Today can be our Independence Day.
It's my ascot.